Hey folks, how y'all doing today? If this is your first time at the channel, thanks for tuning in. I'm Chris, your host, and this is Freedom and Finance, or Finance and Freedom. You pick whichever one you want to name it. If you are a returning guest, well, thanks for coming back. I hope that you've enjoyed some of our previous episodes. If you have not, and you're a new viewer, go back and look at some of the older ones and consider subscribing. Hopefully you'll like some of them and will like them, quote unquote. And then tune in for future episodes. On today's, I've got some notes here and I want to go back and use this week's episode as kind of a recap. And you might be thinking, well, why do you want to recap what you've already talked about? Well, for that very reason, we've already talked about it. So it might be a good time to go back and recap some of the previous information. So first off, let's talk about investment just a little bit. We've talked about various types of investments, CDs, savings accounts, mutual funds, ETF, or exchange traded funds. You've got REITs, you've got gold, you've got silver, all kinds of things, collectibles of various types, everything from coins to wine to art, things of that nature. But for the average person, like me and you perhaps, index funds and ETFs are probably the best way to go. Now, even Warren Buffett, like the richest person in the world, has said that it's probably preferable for the average person, American or otherwise, to be invested in index mutual funds or things of things of that nature. He even suggests to his executor of his will to, if his wife is still alive, for all of their money to be put into the Vanguard Index 500 mutual fund for her. So if the guy that's like the richest person in the world is suggesting that that is the way to go, maybe we should all kind of consider that, huh? So anyway, that's probably the best for the average person. Now, if you are a Warren Buffett wannabe and you read and study and breathe finance, investments, things of that nature, and you really want to delve into individual stocks, well, you can certainly do that. Nobody's going to stop you. If you win or lose at that game, and that's kind of what it is, it's a game, you really, really have to do a lot of research and studying. You also have to have a very, very a good ability to stand fast when you choose a stock for a company and that stock goes down. It's easy to be excited when the stock is going up. If you still believe in it, you have to really still be excited when the stock goes down. And I don't mean just a percent or maybe a couple dollars a share or whatever, unless it's only about a $5 share. But if it's going down big time over a period, particularly over a period of time, a long extended period of time, if you don't really believe in that company, then you probably shouldn't be in it. And you need to consider selling it or trading it off or what have you. Now, again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not trained in that respect. I've never been schooled or certified as a financial advisor. So please take this as not financial advice, because it's not financial advice. I'm just a YouTube guy, and you're a YouTube watcher guy or girl, and so let's just take it in that vein, okay? Now, One thing that Peter Lynch used to say, and if you don't know who Peter Lynch is, you can go back and you can look in the history of Fidelity funds, and you will find that Peter Lynch was kind of the number two to Warren Buffett's number one when it came to investment. Peter Lynch always said that if you're going to pick stocks, you should pick stocks of companies that you know. And by know, I don't mean just know the name like Exxon or Xerox or IBM or Intel or Microsoft or something like that, but you really know the company, the financials of the company, the income that it produces every year, both as a company and for its stockholders, how much it spends on expenses in manufacturing and things of that nature. If you know that type of depth of information on a company, then you're probably pretty well off in regards to being able to make a decision whether it's a company that you want to buy stock in. Okay? So if you're at that point, God love you. You know, I mean, you know a lot more about that than probably the average person. You're probably qualified enough to make those types of decisions without considering it just a blind gamble, like buying a lottery ticket or something like that just because it's Friday afternoon and you just got off work with a pocket full of money, right? So that's the way I would tell anybody that's interested in individual stocks. If you can take that Peter Lynch process or the Warren Buffett process where you research and you know the company, know all its financials really, then you're probably going to do okay. Doesn't mean you'll get rich, because you're still probably going to have to balance off how much you win and how much you lose on any daily basis, right? There's no magic system. There just isn't, that I have read, that is actually workable and accurate, okay? So you have to do that research. Now, excuse me, to swap gears a little bit, let's talk about investment from the standpoint of real estate, okay? Some of you may have seen in a previous episode of this channel, I am currently working and self-employed as a real estate agent. Real estate from the standpoint of investment can be a great long-term play, but you have to understand that it is a long-term play. You're generally speaking not going to go and buy a rental property today and in 6 months be able to resell it and turn a $100,000 profit or whatever the case may be, okay? It's a long-term process. People have, over the period of time, centuries, literally, lots and lots of people have gotten fairly well off, wealthy, even rich to a certain extent with real estate. Now, as a recap, you can buy individual homes, you can buy multifamily homes, you can buy commercial properties, you can also buy REITs, real estate investment trusts, which is a fancy type of name for a mutual fund or an ETF that invest in various types and forms of properties. You've even got companies such as Fundrise. Now, Fundrise is kind of a consolidator, if you will, if you wanted to think about it from the standpoint of airline travel from years ago. They consolidate people's money, kind of like a mutual fund. They are going to go out and use that money to buy various types of properties, and then they're going to pay you as a investor in that fund or Fundrise or other types of companies. And there are lots of them, folks. Just Fundrise just happens to be one that comes to the top of my mind. They're going to pay you out some form or fashion of dividends based on the profit that they make when they purchase those properties and then begin to rent them out. Okay, so certainly something along those lines is in many cases for certain individuals a much better prospect than dealing with individual homes and renters and things of that nature. Now, if you prefer rental properties, just to reiterate, you can go it alone and you can manage it yourself, even as the landlord or the owner of the property. You can deal with all the maintenance issues. You can deal with the procurement of your rental amounts each month from whomever your renters are. You can deal with all of the things that are involved, and there are a lot of different things that are involved with owning rental properties if you're going to manage them yourself. Now, if you're trained in all that, or if you've got experience, then certainly rental properties are potentially for you a good method to build wealth, and generational wealth at that. Now, if you prefer not to deal with that, you don't like people, you don't like having to go and ask for the money that you're owed, then a property management company is probably a better bet for you. There are lots of property management companies, just like any other kind of company, commercial company or whatever. There are some that are good, there are some that are bad, and there's some that are somewhere in between. Okay, somewhere between the lines. If you're going to do that and you want some property management company to run it for you, then by all means do your research. Okay, it can be as easy as going out and doing, a look on Yelp as an example, or do a Google search for reviews on certain property management companies, and you'll find out a little bit of information about those companies. You can also reach out on various, let's say, Facebook forums, or just forums in general for various websites. You can look on YouTube and see if anybody has a particularly type of video that they've done on a specific property management company, good, bad, indifferent, as far as comments go. You can certainly do that. Check with your friends, your family, maybe your Chamber of Commerce if you're located in a city that has more than one. They might have information on that. And lastly, you can always check with the Better Business Bureau. If it is a valid company, then it's probably going to be registered and a legal company, not just one that runs through Facebook ads. Okay. And that's the only way. We mentioned REITs, and we also mentioned the Fundrise. Those, if you're going to do those, also do your research. Now, REITs, obviously, they're like a mutual fund. If you get a REIT from a good, reputable mutual fund company, you're not going to have to worry too much about that. The thing to look at and worry about perhaps is the funds that the fees that the funds charge, and also its turnover rate. It's just like any other mutual fund or ETF. If they got high fees, if they've got a huge turnover rate, then obviously that could potentially increase the amount of taxes that you pay. Based on the capital gains and dividends that it pays out to you, because REITs are required by law to pay out generally up to 90% of their dividends, etc., each year out to their fund owners. So if it has a high turnover rate, that means that it's going to be paying out a lot of additional cash to you as a shareholder of that fund. And again, that can increase your tax rate. But again, this isn't tax advice. It's not investment advice. If you do invest in those types of things, and it's beneficial to you if you check with a CPA or some type of manager that is certified in that type of an financial aspect to help you make good financial decisions, okay? Particularly from a tax standpoint. Okay, so let's shift gears just one more time, and we're going to talk a little bit about life and life freedom, okay? If you're on YouTube very much, you've probably considered or seen suggestions from the YouTube algorithm that said, you know, hey, why don't you go on vacation or live around the world or be a digital nomad or things of that nature. There is one channel that I have for a number of years now been watching called The Nomad Capitalist. Don't get anything out of this. I'm not plugging it for any particular reason except to say his moniker or his saying that he kind of lives by and has for a number of years is go where you are treated best. Now, he kind of focused that on your life, which is the reason why I bring that up. And when you think about go where you are treated best, that's not just about life, and it's not necessarily just about where you live, because in last episode or previous episode, we talked about location in regards to real estate and where you live and things of that nature. Go where you're treated best not only is a good reference for where you live or where you are going to live, it also has or can have a huge impact on your investment, where you go to do that. You know, I mean, if you are looking at particularly or specific types of mutual fund companies, maybe one suits you better because they have a better website, or a different one may suit you better because they have lower fees or no fees at all. I mean, Fidelity has some mutual funds that absolutely they're zero fee funds, meaning that whatever you put in is you don't have anything reduced from that amount, you know, in order to pay fees. Okay, they have no fees on those specific ones. Now, that's not to say that all of their funds are zero fees, because they're not. Okay. Now, so this can, again, it can be referencing your life, your investment, your residency, you know, where you live, because you can be a resident of a country and not actually be a citizen of it, right? And the same thing goes with citizenship. One thing that that he speaks about on his channel, on Nomad Capitalist channel, is that it's certainly possible to have multiple citizenships. Depending on your nationality or your current citizenship, you may have the ability to have an infinite number of citizenships, which you can obtain by, you know, your family heritage. If you want to invest in property in a certain country where they will give you citizenship after a period of years. And likewise, they can also give you residency, which may or may not require a purchase of a property or a home. You may be just able to invest money into a bank account or savings account or what have you, and just basically let it sit there. And they may give you residency to be within their country for a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever the case may be. For essentially you're buying residency, right? The same thing can be in regards to vacation. One thing that that he mentions on his channel and has for a long time is moving. So he references citizens of the United States, especially that say, well, I don't like living in California because the taxes and just the politics and everything that's involved. So I think I'm going to move to Florida, even though it's all the way across the country of the United States. His thing is, and he's mentioned it again and again, is if you can move across the country to save on taxes, you can certainly move around the world to do the same thing. Instead of just moving to Florida to save a few % on your taxes, perhaps you can move to Ireland or maybe Peru or other places around the world And likewise, you can save on your taxes, and maybe you might find that not only do you like the country or the culture, but overall cost of living may be cheaper as well. So don't necessarily discount that you can't move somewhere other than just another state in the United States. Again, if you're a U.S. citizen, or if you're an EU citizen, maybe you can move from the UK to Portugal, or from Germany to Greece, and do essentially the same thing, which is save on your taxes, have a better quality of life, okay? Have more freedoms, less expensive to travel, to live, to just do your day-to-day things that you like and enjoy to do in life, right? I would tell you that that type of freedom can also be looked at from a vacation standpoint. Mentioned going from California to Florida for cheaper taxes. Instead of going from anywhere to Florida, as an example, in the United States, you can go to a totally different country and have a better experience at a cheaper rate. Yeah, you might have to fly there, but gosh, has anybody gone to Walt Disney in Florida recently? Gosh, it's like $250 a day just to get into the parks per person. So if you've got a family of four, I mean, you're talking between $800 and $1,000 a day just to go to the parks. That doesn't include your food. It doesn't include your transportation to and from there. It also doesn't include your hotel or your Airbnb or Vrbo or wherever you're living and staying in at the time. Unless you're camping in a tent and you're sneaking into the parks as a family, and I don't recommend trying to do that, okay? Don't get me wrong. It ain't cheap to go to Orlando, Florida to go to Disney World. Now, if you wanted to, let's say, go to the River Maya, or someplace like the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, you can go for a much cheaper price. Even though you're going to fly, you're still going to have a hotel or some type of a lodging arrangement. You're still going to have the ability to go and do and see some really interesting, fun, family-focused things while you're there. And I tell you, I think it's going to be a much cheaper trip and just as enjoyable. Yeah, more enjoyable than going and being at the parks, there in Orlando. Likewise, why not just make it a family overseas vacation and go to Greece? Greece is a pretty popular place to go. Weather is great. It's not really that much more expensive to fly to Greece, as an example, or Italy, than it would be to fly somewhere else within the United States or maybe Canada. So those types of things can certainly give you a similar type of feeling of go where you're treated best. You go to the parks in Orlando, to Disney World, you're just another one of thousands of people that are there every day. Do the people there really look at you as being any different or more special or anything like that because you're there? No, you're just another customer. You're there spending money, and they're, whatever. They're doing whatever they do. And whether you're there or not, they don't care. But I guarantee you, if you go on vacation to someplace like Italy or Greece, and typically, if you stay away from the usual touristy spots like, the Colosseum in Rome or someplace like that, get out and see some of the lesser touristed areas, I guess, if you could say. Go out and see some of the different areas where tourists aren't as prevalent. You're probably going to get a lower cost. You're going to really be able to see some cool and interesting things, particularly if you like history for that country or that area, city, whatever. And it's going to be just as or less expensive than it would be. Again, we're using the example of the Walt Disney World parks in Orlando. or Universal or whatever, it's going to be just as expensive from the aspect of I can go halfway around the world and spend the same amount of time and see cool, interesting things as opposed to just flying, halfway across the United States and spending a ton of money and feeling like at the end of the day that I'm just tired, I'm worn out, and now I'm broke because I spent so much money going to a park. And everybody should know, if you're a U.S. citizen or you've gone to the parks there in Florida and also California, it's not cheap, okay? And oh, by the way, don't forget, there are Disney parks around the world. They're in Japan. Gosh, I can't even think of the other couple of places. But so you don't have to just go to the parks in California and Florida in the United States. You have other parks. Oh, Paris. Paris is the other one, I believe, or at least in France. So, you can go to the other parks if you really want to go to the other parks. And it's probably, I don't know, I would guess it's probably not as expensive as it is here in the States. I could be wrong. I haven't been to those parks. But anyway, so just a short recap today. Next week we'll talk about a related subject, not a recap, but something to deal with finances and the type of freedoms that we all hope to be able to experience. And I hope that you'll consider coming back and checking it out next week too. So down in the comment section, please make your comments if you have them. Make your suggestions if you have them on future episodes. I will tell you, I don't go into a lot of editing for the videos. I don't go into a lot of B-roll as some YouTube creators do, at least not at this stage, maybe in the future. But, I don't feel like you want to come here and just see me making a milkshake or a cup of coffee or whatever the case may be while I talk about things. If you prefer not to have this type of format for a video, make a comment, okay? Anyway, hope you have found something interesting in this. Again, just as a recap of previous episodes. If you got suggestions or comments, please again make them. And I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye.